Hey, what's up guys, it's Fish here and welcome back to another online battle on Medieval Kingdoms 1212. Today we have a Crusader battle. On one side is my force of the Ayyubid Sultanate and on the other side is haxo the Hunter commanding Jerusalem. So it should be a really epic clash. As well as that, look at this amazing sandstorm we are fighting in. It just looks so cool, and I'm so sad that I've only really just come across this weather type, because this looks amazing, and it even looks even cooler when we're actually fighting like in close quarters in this just sand going everywhere. It's really dark and eerie. Yeah, I just can't wait to show you guys this battle. It is quite short and over pretty quickly. However, you know, the weather made me have to actually do it. So we'll run through the army comps now. If you want to skip this, you can click the skip annotation in the top left of your screen. That'll just bring you straight to the action if that's what you're interested in. However, if you want to see what armies everyone's bringing and some of the new units which they've added in for Jerusalem, then feel free. And again, just look at that. That looks amazing. Look how cool that looks. Really cool. So yeah, let's go through. On my front line, I have 5 units of my Gulam foot archers. Again, someone actually did translate or roughly translate what this said. And basically that means there is only one true god and his name is Allah or something along them lines. So that's nice to see that on the back of the Gulam foot archers units. I have 5 of them on my front line. Then behind that I have, I believe, 5 of my Jid swordsmen. And then behind that I have another 2 more of them dudes. Then behind them I have 3 units of my best axemen, which are the Tabaderia. And then I have 2 units of these guys, which will make up the rest of my axes. Again, a pretty strong force. I'm going to need them to break through the heavy armor of the crusading states for sure. Then finally I have my general back here, my Sultan's bodyguard. And then on my flanks I have 2 units on either side of these Ashari nobles or Skari nobles. And then finally I have some of my heavy Jund spearmen. Then if we quickly look at Haxo's army before we get into this battle, on his front line he has 2 units of these dismounted men-at-arms. Yeah, dismounted Crusader men-at-arms. Behind that he has 2 units of these crusading men-at-arms of the late period. Obviously, look at these horses as well. Super heavily armoured. They're going to obviously be very hard for me to kill. Then if we look more to his front line, he has 2 units of these, or 4 units of these crusading marksmen, which are currently marching. Damn, that looks so good. This sandstorm just... Look at the distance right there, them horses moving up. I'm definitely going to have to play way more battles in this. Then on his front line, he has 4 more units of these Genoan men-at-arms. Again, just look at them marching over like that. That looks amazing. God, this battle was so cinematic. It really was. Yeah, he has 4 units of these Genoan spearmen. Or Marines, I think they're called. Then he has 4 units of these military order Crusaders of the late period. So they're really good. Then obviously he has his King of Jerusalem, which is here somewhere. Can't actually see him right now, but he's in that. There he is, right there, leading the men forward. So we will pause it just so we don't miss any of the action. But he has some more of his crusading knights, and then finally he has a unit of these dismounted Templar knights. And I think he also has a Hospitaller dismounted. Oh no, it's just 2 units of Templars. So no Hospitallers in this battle. I guess they're taking a break or something. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this battle started. We'll start off by just watching my Gulam foot archers marching in this epic fashion as they push forward to get into range. So in this battle, I am definitely going to be outmatched in the military, in the melee engagement. Haxo has a ton of really late period infantry, which the Ayyubid Sultanate just doesn't really have. Obviously, you know, the crusading states of a new faction they've added in recently, so they're going to have a lot more units, and the Ayyubid Sultanate's quite an old faction, so they have a lot of outdated units until they obviously, you know, update them. So it's going to be very hard for me to break through Haxo's front line. But I believe in my axemen to go and do that, because obviously these guys are pretty good at armor piercing. So it's going to be down to these guys to really break through. And obviously I do have my Gulam foot archers as well, which are already opening up onto Haxo's infantry line and archer line. These guys have a missile damage of like 78. So they're really good. I'm just going to need these guys to just put down as much hurt as possible. Try and loosen up his line before my infantry get in, because they are going to be you know, a lot stronger than these guys. I believe these guys have like 60 something melee attack, so my dudes are going to be you know, somewhat better. That looks so nice with all the flags. It reminds me of like that scene of Kingdom of Heaven when they're all marching out into the desert. Looks really cool. Unfortunately I haven't starved them or starved them at first. or anything. So I'm going to be moving up my Ascari Nobles and my Jud Spearmen. They're going to be pushing up closer and closer. Because the nice thing is, Haxo's actually put his dismounted Templar Knights on his front line over here. So if I can get a good cavalry charge on these guys, if I can get like an open charge without him stopping, I should be able to kill a bunch of these guys before they even do any work. But however, that will mean that my Spearmen are still up against these dismounted Templar Knights, which are really going to be no match. So it's going to be a difficult fight for sure. I'm going to continue to push on because, you know, I never like to stay defensive in a battle. We always want to push on. Fight forward is the way forward. And forward we all go. Haxo is doing the exact same with his Genoa Marines who are pushing up with their huge shields. Again, these guys are just as good as Pavese. They're really strong at holding the line. So it's gonna be difficult for me to break through. Something I should have done, which I don't actually do, I just charge my front line into these Genoan spears. But what I should have done is I should have just moved up my axes into these guys, because my axes would have been much better on the charge at breaking down these shields and stuff. So that's definitely something I should have done for sure. You can see my archer fire is currently going in, and there we have it. My front line is charging. I'm immediately going to be getting a perfect charge off onto these dismounted Templars and sending so many of them flying into the dark abyss. As well as that, our infantry lines are about to clash. As we zoom down here, you can see I am smashing into the Genoan Marines. They're going to be holding the line because that is what they are there for. Their huge shields just give them such good ability to push back my advancing forces. As well as that, I get another perfect charge down here onto these Marines. Again, setting these men-at-arms flying. Haxo's going to use his cavalry though, holding me in place with his dismounted Crusading Knights, and he's going to get a really good charge on. I finally managed to turn, but it is way too late. He is going to get an epic charge into my Ascari Nobles, who are going to be fighting hard against these Crusading Knights. As well as that, you can see I'm moving up the rest of my infantry. As well as that, Haxo is doing an amazing job with his cavalry here, microing and just kind of out-committing me here. I committed my cavalry to the front, and then Haxo decided to move his cavalry around the flank and get a perfect charge in the back of my Ascari Nobles, and that's just going to be devastating for them. They are really going to have no coming back from that, at least that unit is not. I am throwing in some of my spearmen to help out, but Haxo is going to pull out over here. As well as that, Haxo also got a really, really nice charge into my Gulan foot archers, which, you know, is going to be cutting them down. These Crusaders are so good, and they're going to be doing so much damage on that front line. If we go back to the actual front line itself, you can see I've moved up some of my axemen now. My Tabaderia trying their best to break through, but really a lot of them are in the actual back of the line. And I should have just had these guys charging in first, because, you know, Haxo didn't have any of his military order swordsmen in, so the axemen would have just been perfect to really fill in this gap and push on. I still have quite a bit of archer fire coming in. You know, this is what I should have done. Just have these guys smash in on the charge, and I think that the charge would have worked out a lot better for me, at least breaking through this unit. Haxo is going to resupply this Genoan Marine unit with a unit of his military order spearmen. If we look over here, you can see I am doing pretty decently against these dismounted Crusading Knights, but with their huge claymores and stuff, they are just, you know, cutting down the spearmen. The swordsmen are doing a bit better, but it's going to be a difficult fight. Obviously, having 2 versus 1 is going to help me out, and having that cavalry charge in the first place is, again, really going to help out. But he does manage to push back one of my units, you can see, routing over there, and his cavalry, again, just making quick work of my front line. It does look amazing, though, in the actual sandstorm, if we look at it from a bird's eye view right there. You can see my men pushing on, the archer fire overhead. I also managed to get a nice little outflank here, but some of his sword infantry are going to be stopping. I believe this is the military order of the early period. So in the actual campaign, this is probably one of the units you're going to be using more like in the beginning of the campaign, you know, because normally in these online battles you really only see the late tier units. So seeing these really cool looking early game units is always awesome, because these are the guys you're going to be using in the actual campaign when it does inevitably come out. And what an awesome decapitation right there. That was absolutely amazing. I love that for sure. Some of these axemen are also managing to get into the side of these Genoan Marines, which is pretty good for me. But as you can see, my center has been absolutely smashed by the Crusaders. They gave no quarter. God wills it, and they pushed on. God definitely did. Sorry about that, guys. I just had a little coughing fit, but I cut that out so you guys wouldn't have heard that. But basically, yeah, as I said, Haxo's infantry just pushed through my center. God willed it indeed, and they just broke upon me. He is pushing my men back, and this has kind of forced me to kind of act in a defensive formation now. I'm having to kind of fall back and just try and protect as many men as possible. As well as this, I just got my general out of a cavalry engagement. I tried to withdraw him. However, Haxo gets an amazing charge on the back of my general. And that's probably going to be it for me if he manages to kill him. I'm going to try my best to get him out of there. But if we look from a distance, you can see that the Crusaders are just in full force trying to just, finish up the rest of my men. If we press K, you can see there's a few pockets of resistance left fighting. I've got a few of my Mameluke Tabaderia fighting hard against the Genoan spearmen or the Genoan marines, but they were just too powerful for me. I think really what's happened here is because the Crusaders are a newer faction, their stats are just, updated with kind of all balanced with all the new units they've added in. And the fact that the Ayyubid Sultanate hasn't really received an update recently just meant that these Crusading units are so good compared to, say, the Ayyubid Sultanate, which hasn't really been touched in quite a long while. But obviously, as the game is closer to release, once they finally finish, adding all these units and factions and stuff, the units will be a lot more balanced. But really, the Ayyubid Sultanate just could not stand up against the might of all these new epic-looking Crusading units. They're just really good. And there we have it. My general has been killed. I have one unit left over here, which is going to be charging in for honor and glory, for wrath, for ruin, and the world's end amongst their dead brethren. But Haxo played really well here. He definitely managed to out-micro me with his cavalry, and his infantry were just so good they cut me down. So let's see at the kills. Let's see if anyone went in. Yeah, look how good these Genoan Pavese are. Just amazing. And even his infantry, just doing so well compared to my swordsmen and my spearmen. Just not doing too good. I definitely could have thrown in my axemen first against the Genoans, and that could have maybe helped me out a bit. But yeah, really, I got out microed on the cavalry, and my infantry just were not up to match against Haxo's heavy infantry. So I hope you guys enjoyed this battle. I know it was short, but it was just really cool with the sandstorm. Please make sure to drop a like and a comment if you did enjoy it, and I'll see you guys next time, and fish out.